in the phone book and looking for the nearest Seventh-day Adventist church. And there it was. There was one in Oceanside, so that was a blessing. It was 1983, a long time ago. Some of you were probably not born yet. My mom dropped my grandma and I off at the front entrance, and in we walked. And usually nowadays, you'll see parents walk with their children carefully to Sabbath school, make sure they're comfortable and happy, and they might go to Sabbath school themselves, or they might stay with their kids. My grandmother was raising 4 kids in the 1960s in the rural parts of Philippines, so coddling her children was not in her vocabulary. And she handed me a dollar bill and said, "Go to Sabbath school." And I said, "Okay." So I was walking away from her, and I was scared. I was 6 years old, and I didn't know where Sabbath school was. I think now that someone must have helped me, because I don't know how else I would have found it. And I found my way to Mrs. Marzo's kindergarten class, and she introduced me to the class, and I nervously went and found my seat. And those days we used to take attendance, and they don't do that now, but it would be a manila trifold kind of attendance log. Some people are like, yeah. There would be a slot for the offerings for the Sabbath school class, and Mrs. Marzo asked me what my name is, and it was Pat McConnell, and she wrote it in the next open slot, and I thought, there it is. My name is part of the church now. Sorry. After Sabbath school, again, I had to find my way, and there were people walking everywhere. They knew where they were going. I had no idea. Everyone was towering over me like they do nowadays. I noticed people were walking in and out of the double wooden doors, so I went over there and stood there in front of the doors, closed doors now, and I jumped to try to see through the diamond-shaped glass and made my way in and found my grandma, and everything was okay. The next week, when we went to church, we took the bus. We had to leave our house at 7:30 in the morning. It would take us 2 hours to take the bus every Sabbath. I remember the schedule. I helped my grandmother with the schedule. We took bus 303 from the east side of Oceanside all the way to downtown to the bus station. Then we would have to take bus 315, and remember this because you might need to know it. Then we would have to take bus 315, and it would take you to California Street. So there you go, now you know. And we made it just in time for Sabbath school. We did this for several years. My grandma would be walking to the bus stop like she was on a mission. These quiet times with my grandma would allow me to think about everything and notice the smallest details. I would often admire my grandma on the way to church. She would walk so gracefully, wearing her high heels, and I'd try to clumsily walk just like her. She has strong bones, beautiful facial structure. She should have been royalty. She was the Philippines version of Grace Kelly. On our way to the bus stop at 7:30 in the morning, there would still be morning dew, and it would be freezing, and I imagine everybody's still sleeping, because who would be awake at 7:30 on a Saturday morning? I'd be trailing behind my grandmother, trying not to step on any cracks, because my classmates would tell me, don't step on a crack or you'll break your mama's back. Soon I was far, far behind my grandma, and I was running up to catch with her, because she doesn't coddle me. My grandma was committed. My grandma soon made friends at church, and they would be kind enough to give us a ride. Ernie and Jackie Schroer gave us a ride faithfully for so many years. Thank you so much. I hung out with my grandmother and mostly of her senior friends. From church, we would go to lunch, and I would be pretty much the youngest one at the table. Mrs. Carrie Gamble once invited us to her house for lunch one Sabbath afternoon, and I played with her daughter Terry. Soon I realized my life was two-dimensional. I'd go to public school during the week. My parents would struggle because my dad was in the military, so he would be away most of the time, and my mom was essentially a single mother. And my grandma worked two jobs, one as a housekeeper for military hotels, I don't know what the official name is, in Camp Pendleton, and then she also worked at First Cafeteria in the evenings, except for Sabbath evening. She would support her family that were still in the Philippines, and then every Sabbath I would watch her carefully fill out the tithe envelope, put in her money, seal it, and proudly place it in the offering basket. Every night I'd watch my grandma read the Bible. She gets on her knees, closes her eyes, and prays. I can hear her whispering. God was right there. They were holding hands. She was pleading with him. She was asking him. She was praising him and thanking him for everything. They had a kind of relationship that I was amazed by and in awe of, and wish one day I would have that kind of relationship. Then we would sing Into My Heart before going to bed. My grandma was committed to God, and God was committed to my grandma. I made friends at church. Primary Sabbath school was taught by Mrs. Torres. After the upstairs was built, Mr. Gamble started Sabbath school with worship songs, just like he still does now in kindergarten class. And my son Keegan is in that class, so what a blessing it was to me then and now to my children. Mr. Gamble had these beautiful song books with all of the children's church songs. I remember seeing Into My Heart written out for the very first time, and I noticed the line that says, "Come in today, come in to stay." And I was like, come in to stay? Not Tuesday? My grandma told me it was Tuesday. And I always wondered why it was Tuesday. By the way, this is a picture of my grandma and I at the bus station, and my grandma befriended somebody who we'd see regularly at the bus station, and he took a picture of us. So I hurriedly went to tell my grandmother. I couldn't wait to tell her the correct version, and she was not impressed. One day at church, our then pastor, Pastor Ashley, was introducing a new youth pastor. Pastor Ashley said, "Come on up here, Pastor Eddie." And there went this young man with a lot of jump in his shoes, hopping up to the stage, waving to his new church with a grin, bigger than anybody, and he did the Pastor Eddie handshake with Pastor Ashley. Pastor Eddie would come and visit me at our home, and he gave me Bible studies. Soon I was baptized. I became committed to God. One day at youth group Sabbath school, Pastor Eddie asked us to brainstorm about some ideas we might want to have to go on some youth group trips. So very soon we were skiing at Snow Valley, skiing at Utah. I probably went like 10 times. Water skiing on the Colorado River and camping in the Mojave Desert, and it was a blast, and I had the time of my life. Eventually I grew up, I got married, I have 2 kids now. We are blessed to have our kids come to this school and come to this precious school and have amazingly wonderful teachers. Those Sabbath days while I was riding the bus with my grandma was at the time I thought boring, and I kind of dreaded it sometimes. But looking back, those are my most fondest and most precious memories. Just me and my grandma, small, simple conversations. but mostly just taking comfort in each other's company and enjoying the Sabbath day. And now, just like my grandma, I'm committed. I'm committed to God. I'm committed to be God's servant. I'm committed to be one of those people who helps a child lost in the hallway, trying to find her way. I forgot my tissue. I'm committed because everything that I have has no match compared to the abundance of love and family and richness God has given me. Thank you. By sending me to my grandma and then sending me to this church. In closing, I would love to share a text with you. In Mrs. Mooch's class, she would give a weekly memory verse, and I was going through my daughter's, Alyssa's, assignments, and I came across the memory verse. And it's one of those verses that just grabs at you and shakes you up and puts you down. I just stared at it for the longest time. And it's Exodus 4:12. Now go, I will help you speak. So, now go. Don't worry about the details. God has it all under control. Now go.